I'm Georgia Bullen. I'm the executive director at Super Bloom. Thank you for coming to our events. And I think I feel like these 3 talks, we could just have a whole nother conference, just continue to unpack. But to stick with to run on the mental models concept, what, I think all of you just highlighted what the mental models are that are still case. I was thinking about this last year when we had an event here with some of the folks working in this AT Proto ecosystem, which is like the technology behind Blue Sky. And one of the we were sitting there, we just kept talking about interfaces, and I just drew a bunch of pictures, and I was like, which of the 3 should we repeat? Like the chatbot, the web browser, or the document interface, right, with menus and whatever. And a bunch of people at the table were like, oh shit, we just do the same thing again and again. I was like, yeah, and this isn't. So the question I still have been sitting with is like, well, what should we do now? Like, how do we change that? Like, how do we find new concepts here? How do we not just repeat the patterns? Like, I don't know. What are things that we could practically do, or where are you going right now? What's that work that you're doing? How are you undesigning? How are you breaking that? And it works.
It's okay, sure, yeah.
I was like,
eye contact, but I feel like we're just pointing the light, so. So I think, and this is a question we get sometimes, especially from like students like SAR, like if you're trying to address like problems, why are you working with these like corporates or like tech? And it's kind of like, well, couple things. Obviously, like we could have kind of we only work on projects for the greater good, right? Or be like Greenpeace, which I remember we were trying to collaborate with them like almost 10 years ago now. And there was something around like ocean pollution. And so we were trying to address that. And, and they were like, well, no, we can't help you on a project that's helping with ocean pollution. And we're like, what? Because you're endorsing oil companies to pollute more. And I'm like, I mean, I understand it, but at the same time, it's not helping us. And also it's like, we can't expect a change overnight either, right? So to us, and like our approach, like get in the kind of be uncomfortable, get in the kind of messy middle, start somewhere. And to our point, and like even working on plastic reduction projects, like that tiny inch of like, if they reduce like 30% of like, I've learned this like a bottle caps, the amount of plastic, like tons, like I can't even quantify that from the planet, right? So I think like, at least this is our approach, right? Like we recognize the change is not gonna happen overnight. Mindsets don't shift overnight. But as you start working in these, and also like by working on these things, you're bringing people with different mindset into same space and co-creating together. In that process, the mindsets start to shift. Like I see this in like co-design process where, like even like a couple of weeks ago, we were at Sony lot and running a project around like accessibility, and there were like a lot of people from the community in the room. And then this like executive comes up to me. He's like, I've been at Sony for 23 years. This was the most meaningful day I ever had, right? And that to me, like, wow, you never thought of like sitting down with people who actually have the lived experience. But at the same time, he won't not remember that. He won't unsee that.
And no one was telling him to, right? That was part of that. To the CAPS point, and then I want to keep going. It's one of my obsessions last year has been, if you go to Europe, they've now made it the caption attached genocidal. Yeah. But I just keep thinking about like how much impact that's probably had, and I just wish it was everywhere. Yeah. And it's also like, you don't drop it. It's not getting better for you and the environment, and it's just this tiny little thing added a little bit more plastic, and we don't listen to sewer. Anyway, yeah.
The capping in Europe actually, successfully managed to become a political issue. So we argue that. Yeah. No. So what I'm doing, so it's interesting because in a way, I right now I almost like refuse to design and prototype UIs per se. I'm really interested and I'm really trying. I don't know how it will go, but I'm trying to develop stories rather than UIs. Also acknowledging though that in a way I think we are at a point where if we have an idea, prototyping it is at least accessible and quick. So that's a cool thing that you can do with this technology. So in a way, prototyping gets easier. The why to me is still a mystery because again, they just assume for a second, the dream that everyone is trying to, well, everyone, that lots of people are trying to convince us about. Going to have, I don't know, 10 agents, working on your behalf day and night. They're going to the US for free. Yeah, but also, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
That's why I think we need to. It's like
Throwing things away.
you wake up one morning, and you have nothing to do for the rest of the day because machines are doing all of this for you. What do you do then? Like, what's the point? And I think I want to write. I want to see stories that explore like what would be the point if we were working, if we were living, in this type of world.
Point it out. So you're going to recreate the yes. Yes.
Well, or the behind the scene of the.
The behind the scenes. Yeah.
That's true.
I think as an educator and designer, I'm very focused on not designing solutions. And really encouraging my students and then of the interaction design program to just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, be comfortable in the mess. Please don't work faster. Don't work faster and quicker or easier. Work messier. Like really, as the tools make things easier, then your job actually becomes harder because you have to think and engage in the discomfort. I'm going to say, use the word pain of understanding like the why, right? And I think that's what makes design worth doing, and that's what makes being a designer worth doing it. And I think that's the tension. Is like we have to consistently make this difficult and put a lot of roadblocks in. So sometimes actually saying you're not allowed to make it. Yeah, just have to think.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot, and the thing I think about a lot is people talk about design can feel very exceptionalist, right? Sometimes we talk about design and it feels like this thing that people can't do. But a lot of what we're saying here is like, oh, slow down, talk more, co-design, like engage more. And this thinking of design, getting people to shift and think about design as verbs, right? Like what are the mental models? How do we shape conversations? How do we make space to talk about stuff? How do we push on? And we were talking about this the other night, a few of us, of just that design work is really more about asking questions, right? And so I really love this, the messiness part. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm thinking also about the stories piece. You mentioned Hollywood, right? Seeing all of these ads, these images of perfection and what we need to be. It's how might we forget folks, just putting other stories out there. What is the next big conversation the last 2 weeks has been how much of what's happening right now is actually just the result of science fiction, media and books, the things of that's just us actually doing the things instead of saying, let's not do those things. Right? So it's what are the constraints we need to build in to that story building to help shape those differences? I don't know. Go to
I'll start. My favorite thing right now are these Luddite clubs that are emerging in college campuses. There's one at Parsons. There's not one yet, but I talked to some students at SEN. They were going to start. But essentially, I think they're very joyous celebrations and convenience where people decide to give up their phone for a week. Then they have parties on the High Line where they're just drinking milk in the rain. Yeah, it's very profound. Yeah, and then taking sledgehammers to iPads and it's their day. No. Okay. Alex. Yeah, but I think they want to break. Everything is moving too fast, so they're slowing down, which is I think really lovely. And then I think there are so many science fiction writers. There's not just two. Yeah. There's hundreds and thousands. I was thinking recently revisiting J.G. Ballard's work. And he was in this interview and talking about imagination commitment as a very important civic value. I think that's what we have to reinforce.
Honestly, I think it's so simple. And I think the irony of us not seeing that is just to make it more human. I when I go to AI conferences around AI safety or ethics, even like the storytelling piece around it, like I'm just staring at academic papers on the slide and then someone walking through, this is paper, and then like it just doesn't, it doesn't come through. And I think that's one thing that I also see is like the silos in the space and no like design thinking, which comes with the abductive reasoning, right? Like not existing in some of these spaces also, is a problem in groups, like well-intentional groups, not being able to bring the stories out. And really just like, and when you even look at, I don't know if any of you watched the AI doc, it's basically like going to a conference with some cute animation. It's just a lot of experts talking, all from like the Western world, by the way. And so, and then you're like, this is not just an expert problem, like this is about all of us. Like, why are we not hearing any human stories? And, one human like story goes a much further than, 10 experts telling you something, whether we're going to die or like thrive, right? And I don't know why it being so odd, like we're humans, to your point, like what's the point of being a human if we can't have the human experience? And we know we're more interested in like looking at other people, hearing from other people, being around other people. Why aren't we sharing more human stories or humanizing the content? I think it's so simple, but it seems like it's so hard to do.
Yeah, and I think, I agree. I think that for myself, there are always these two rules that I try to follow. So one is try to avoid, the experience of the spectrum, because you have dystopia on one side. Like we can, like Black Mirror is becoming a world. We can Black Mirror everything to death. But we can also do the opposite. I can also, go on like full utopia. And it's like what you get in corporate videos where it's like, in 10 years, like life will be perfect. Your computer will do everything. So I think it's like this like middle between this where it's like not rejection or not just thinking how we're going to die, because we're going to die anyway.
Oh no.
But elected it's fine. Not. So, just like trying to work in that middle where things are like the mental model that I had is like things will get more difficult, will be messy, would be exhausting, like climate would be horrible. But we will still find, some purpose, some way to do it. What is it? Write it. Whatever it is, like it's a comic, it's a story, it's a movie, it's a game. Like the format almost doesn't matter. And the second thing is also, again, now we have the technology of other soft to do it, but also don't just think about these things as, fiction pieces, like how to make it real, like you did with the mall. It's like you can explore a different mental model, you can explore a different way of being together, and then, build a prototype. Then, go to a house for a month and try and see what happens.
I want to invite questions from the audience, but just to reflect on this, like, so I'm hearing is we should lean into messy and uncomfortable and bridging, which I thought was so stuff that I feel like I'm always pitching to people up, like, this is where we need to be, because to some extent, the extremes of the narratives that we're also getting right now are being manufactured. You're making out like, pick a camp, right? Geek middle. And it's like,
Don't go on LinkedIn.
yeah, don't do this. It's like, but it's because we haven't figured out how to talk to each other, right? We haven't figured out how to bridge that common language. And it's like, that's what we need to work on, right? We have to like be in that middle. Yeah.
To quickly add on that, and I see this as like an educator as well, I think we need to bring back debates. I feel like it's a lost art. We like forgot how to have a conversation if we disagree with each other. I find I also teach like ethical design leadership, and I find utilizing ethical frameworks as tools in debates are very helpful, because you can't get emotionally triggered. Like you have to be a deontologist, so just speak as a deontologist. So like putting them in camps, I think it's good in practice for students.
Yeah.
And I think for professionals too, I think it's just like hosting debates. There's a communication, there's a framework. We can't get emotional about it. It's not about blowing aside. You may not even agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's really good practice, and I think that's a good thing you should.
Yeah, it reminds me of just like personas as a design school, but like persona, like an ethical frameworks version of like a persona exercise, right? Yeah, something like that. All right, do folks have questions? Like invite see hands. Okay. A cat, the light. Yes, go ahead. You fat. Thanks.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think about a lot, kind of using all of the analogies I do share it, is all analogy in the space. Specifically, it's I think one of the questions that I often ask myself as AI becomes more embedded in our lives, it's to some extent, we're gonna date myself for you. So I grew up in a time before the internet was a part of our lives. I was in college when social media really took off, and it's kind of expanded ever since. And what I noticed over that course of time, just not long, is that I have kind of become less and less detached from in-person interaction. Like when I was younger, I had to meet my friends at the mall because that's what was around suburban mall mileage. But then I didn't have to be at the mall. I could just talk to them on Facebook. And now with AI, I don't think that's possible. So I think the question I often think was almost like, to what end is all it's, or what are we doing? Like,
Zoom rooms at all. Just kind of well remotely, and to connect across distances at mall. But how would you do it in person, right? If we didn't have technology, how would something? The question to think about there that I was sort of hearing is like, how would we do it if we?
I don't know if so like how is it being used to serve humanity? Like how is it really making our lives better? Just what we're full by arts companies.
Yeah, no. I just had a semi-funny story about this. I just remember, when I started working at Google in Monterview, like my then manager, it's like the first thing that he told me, when like first day, you get your badge, you get your laptop, and then he was just like, well, you need to understand this about, this and our competence. It's like people are building, these technologies because they don't want to go and talk with a person. So it's like, we don't want to ask direction, so we build maps. We don't want to call someone, so we build a chapter, and so on. So I mean, I don't know, just like reminding me of this when you were mentioning this. So I think there is like an embedded, like intent in this. So then the next question is like, what is the opposite intent? I mean, it's like, we're like loneliness crisis. Like, how do we?
Yeah, I mean, the original, I think it was Howard Built This podcast episode about Google Glass, which like now we have the Meta Ray-Bans and all these things, right? But the original issue, the reason that Google Glass guy built those glasses is because he wanted to be a better human interactor. Like he was like, I'm bad at people stuff, I need help. And so he built it as like social support to be able to interact with people better, right? But then
Unintended consequences.
understanding consequences, it's just an interesting. But so many of these things are like, how do I solve this problem without needing to rely on people? It's like, am I avoiding talking to them, or am I avoiding reliance on others? Right? And then like, how do we think about what might go wrong if you say I'm gonna guess.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoy this presentation conversation. I love the connections between single-use plastics, mall, and then data centers. It just makes sense, like organically, and And I have a question for you around power, because everything that you have mentioned on all these different technologies, historically for humanity, it has to do with power, right? Who decides, who builds, who pays for the use in data, right? And then from your experience as people who are working in innovation, creativity, exploring alternatives, what are your thoughts about shifting power from where we are to something different, right? That makes better sense for a more, our ideas of a more sustainable future that, whatever it's.
I guess one thing, and we talked about this in the workshop yesterday too, like being a coach design practitioner, I think really helps with that, like facilitating in the process at these shifting that power. But again, like I think for the power shift to happen, the first step is awareness, right? And awareness to the public in this case, especially around AI. But the interesting bit is like when we were doing this like research classics, one insight title we had, I remember, was if awareness doesn't translate to action, it results in anxiety, and we called it AAA insight. And what I think could happen, especially around AI, because now we have this like intense narrative push, right? Like for plastics, for us to wake up from what was happening, it took probably like 50 years, and we're trying to untangle that mess now. But with AI, it's mirroring our problems to us so fast that I'm hoping the awareness piece, and because we got burnt so many times with all these like narratives and push, the ads even look similar now. I'm hoping the awareness piece starts happening faster, and maybe we get better at mobilizing an action, right? So I think like in the end, for that power shift to happen, it needs to start with that. And maybe if we're seeing these red flags pretty fast now, I'm hoping that kind of the counteract towards it will be faster relative to some other examinees in history.
Oh gosh. Oh. Well, you can start by wearing this necklace. It's very important.
Better friend don't shop.
This song. No, but it's seriously like we have to, I think, call out the total absurdity that's happening. Yeah, I want a microphone all the time. And then there's an ad saying like, no, I just don't feel like talking to people. I just want to talk to myself. And I was like, so then you can do that alone, right? Or you pay $129 and then give all your data to this company, right? We have to, the absurdities are just like so abundant and prolific. I think we have to start by calling them out. But I also think that we don't want to fall into the same trap as we have with the plastics issue, where it's all our fault. And then we're like, oh no, I used a straw. Like it's the oil company. It's not me using a straw, and it's not my fault, like, so we don't have to, like, we don't want to move into the guilt and shame. We want to stay in a space where we feel like empowered, but we need to push back and ask for accountability, because there's no money without people using their product. There's no product without users, right? Yes. So we hold a massive amount of power.
And I think also, I think I said it yesterday in the workshop with you. This technology, the AI thing. It's a second. Though, as an interesting difference, for instance, from plastic, in that you can still, mold it to whatever you need, you want. So yes, of course, we are incentivized to use, chatbots and so on. But at the same time, I think it's also possible. There's also a colleague of mine, Tom, in the audience. Like we did it last year. We did workshops with students where we were showing them, just again going back to the mental model, the possibility of using exactly the same technology in a different way.
Yeah.
Because plastic, you just buy a product, you use it, you throw away. AI, you can use it to be, the tool that you need for your particular need. And you don't need to buy another tool, and you don't need to buy another subscription, to get what you need. If we were to teach more like this way of thinking, or just, show the possibility of like, cannot be just a chat, you can also be the thing that you need, try, here is how to do it. Then it becomes a bit more like, it's still plastic, but you're molded to what you need. And so hopefully, you can mold it to something that will not be just a type of plastic.
That's a great like that reframing, right? Basically on what AI is. Like, it's not like last rocket ship out of a planet being destroyed, right? You don't have to jump on board, and we don't have to just like subscribe to it. It's a tool. Let's use it as a tool. We don't have to use it as a replacement or the savior of all.
Yeah, I think we talked, in the class I was teaching last year on responsibility and ethics here, we ended up having a lot of conversations. People were like, well, what can we do to fight any of this? And I was like, if we're working somewhere and we can't push for us to do user testing or run a workshop, and I was like, you can start a lunch conversation, where you ask these questions. You can figure out how to ask, like, why not, or could be budget for that next time, right? Like, how do you use where you're at and just like make incremental change, right? I also think something I had a conversation with folks about recently is this, to build on the prototyping and iterating concepts, or just like reflection space. I was talking to someone the other day, he said, one of the ways he is trying to remind himself to not like fall down the rabbit hole of it all is he'll like alternate, so he'll use stuff for a week and then he like doesn't, right? He's like, okay, go back to I don't want to lose my skill set. I want to remember how to do it. I want to question. So it's again, like asking questions, like figuring out. And I think talking to people about that, that came up in a conversation we had with a team of like, what are you using these tools for right now? Like, how are you feeling about it? Like, what are your concerns and how do we help each other, like, navigate that? Yeah, I saw another canned, I know we only have like 2 rounds, so let's take last question and then, yeah.
I'm really intrigued by the metaphor of caustic, as an example for how I have my pages. And I'm wondering, in some sense, caustic one, right? Like it's everywhere. You can't opt out. You're breathing it in, even if you never use anything plastic. Is there a decision point that you've seen in your study of plastic where that there was a chance to shape how plastics threat differently that does not take it?
It is, and you saw it in the presentation, right? It's like mental models building on top of other mental models. So it's like the infrastructure built on, so to detangle it, it's impossible. The more you pull from one side, the more you're like creating problems on the other side because it's an infrastructure problem. Now entire manufacturing lines are set up accordingly. It's not just like we got used to it so much that the convenience that we were sold, now we think everything needs to be convenient. Like, oh, a package opened a bit more rough because it was cardboard. How dare it? Like I want it to open smooth, right? The seamless experience, the convenience. I think going back to like what you were saying too, what for and do we even need it? Like that critical thinking piece, if we didn't buy into the flashy ads, right? So I'm hoping now we know better. But we didn't like believe the narrative of like convenience and instead like, but what for? Like that ad of Dixie cups you saw was like, your kids won't ask you a million times to do the water, like they can fill it themselves. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a parent. Like I can give my child water. Like, does that need to be a convenience, right? So I think just like to your point, like asking one question on after what you're being told, that could have changed everything. Like, do we really need to buy into that convenience piece? And, I think like obviously we have, and we talk about unintended consequences in design a lot, right? Like the seamless interaction. Like we also push that in design a lot, right? Then leading to like dark patterns and all that. And so I think like today, what we can do really differently is just like, if you're hearing something over and over and over again, there's a chance that they're hiding something else, right? Because they're really pushing that narrative, like similar to the malls too. But just ask a question. Like, why am I keep seeing this? Why is the algorithm keeps pushing me this? Why do I see all these ads? Like, why are suddenly all podcasts are talking about it? Or if somebody's saying, whatever 80% of like white collar jobs are going to be replaced by AI, who is saying those? And why are they saying them? Do they really need to keep their stock prices up? Do they need to really sell to, investors that this is the future because they're now down in I don't know how much debt with all this like data centers? So I think it's really just like getting together and asking questions to each other, like, because there's a lot of like fear mongering among us too. Like, oh, I read this, we're going to be replaced. Like, I think this one news piece I shared with my partner the other day, this UK school, their kids' girls' soccer team won a game. And then they published, a story around it because they're proud. And then the school, a couple weeks later, got blackmailed by these, I don't know, like people who use these girls' photos to create AI-generated videos of really inappropriate things. So now the conversation in UK is like to push a policy for schools not to share children's photos on their sites. As a mom, I like agree with that. I don't share my kids' photos online. However, that's a symptom treatment like we always do. Like, who is generating these photos? Why are tools are even generating these photos? And instead of like addressing that, do we really need to address this like, oh, don't share anything? Suddenly we're on the internet with no faces. Like, it's not the thing. Yeah, the straw thing. So it's, I think when you're seeing something or on ads, on the news, really just asking questions. Even if we like built that habit of critical thinking, or I'm going to ask myself one question after I read something, that could go a long way.
Yeah, I think the question in all of these is maybe who's paying, right? And to your point, it's about the mall. That's like, so that if you, like, I had not done the research. This is my non-research statement, but I'll take a bet on, and I would love to be confirmed, your question of like, what was the pivotal moment? Probably a tax break.
Yeah.
Probably. And so that
The data centers are all tax.
I'm like, why aren't we turning the malls into data centers? But yes, Charles is telling me he needs to stop talking.
Okay.
Thank you.